All right, here we go again. Okay, so hopefully the audio is a little better and hopefully the video is a little bit better. So I'm just making incremental improvements. But basically, what I want to do is I want to now just talk about what some of those, I guess you could say, next steps or where I'm going with this, okay? Because it's like, okay, great. We need to be more responsible for our impacts, right, on our health, right? Those three aspects of health, again, are on human health. Remember, that's inside and outside of our bodies. On environmental health, because how we interact with the environment, it reciprocates back to us, right? And then the third one is the economic health, right? So it makes more sense for me to actually give my money to a company that creates a product that's here locally than it is for, like, I use the Nestle example. Then, because if I give money to buy a product that's made by Nestle, they're located in Switzerland, so it actually makes it's a better for our economy. Plus, who knows? That could be my neighbor or somebody who lives very close. All right. So when it comes to actually starting to be more responsible for these things, we want to break it down into different categories, or I would just call these areas of importance. And these areas of importance, I'm just starting. They're all very important, but I'm just starting what I would say is the first and most important topic, which is water. Right? We're going to go into that just a little bit today. I would say also personal care products, things like soaps, lotions, those kinds of things. And I'm talking about soap. I'm talking about, it could be hand soap, it could be shampoo, conditioner, even cleaners, different types of things, right? Then you've got food or nutrition side of things. We've got utilities for our homes and our businesses. So you could talk about like power and gas to heat and cool our homes, clothing and apparel, furniture and decor, other household products, automobiles, fuel, for vehicles and other uses. And and as I go, we'll probably break these down in different ways, but that's just really how I'm kind of seeing it right now. And again, we'll break them down one at a time, talk about some of the different aspects of how these things work. And what I mean specifically is we want to look at how we consume those products from a variety of different factors. We're going to compare it to the rest of the world, as well as we're going to look at what we call the product life cycle, which I'll go into next. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cite some different data, as well as provide some links to some different videos. I'll see if I can put some other videos in here as well. And I highly recommend to watch the videos that I'm going to recommend, because it will make perfect sense and it will create context for what I'm discussing. Okay, so when it comes to, so this is what I call the product life cycle. Okay, so when it comes to the product life cycle, I'm going to use this water bottle as an example. Okay, so we're going to kind of break it down, and there's three parts in particular that I want to refer to. So you've got the lid, you've got the bottle, the metal itself, right? And then you've also got the water inside. Okay, so in terms of breaking it down, we want to look at where were they sourced from? Where did they come from? Okay, so I'm talking about where on the planet, right? What was the location, the distance? Was it in India? Was it in China? Was it in Bangladesh? Was it in, Colorado? Where did the metal come from? Because it came from a mine, right? The plastic was, at one point, it was dead dinosaurs, right? So it was, and then it was oil in the ground, came out of the ground, as petroleum, as a raw material, right? And then also you've got the water inside, right? So it comes down a canyon and it goes into a reservoir or something like that. So we want to get an idea of where all these come from. What's the distance or the location? So what's the location? And then what's the distance from them to us, or from them to manufacturing? Because that's the next thing that I'll go through here in just a second. But we want to get an idea. Okay, because those things are actually important. Because what if the source of the metal, what are the working conditions of the source of the metal, right? So if was it actually mined by slave labor, right? Because that is something that's happening. And those are some of the things that I want to bring up I want to bring in awareness so we can start to be responsible for the products that we're consuming and that we're purchasing. Okay, and there's really only three areas that all of our products are going to come from, right? Most are going to come from the ground, some are going to come from water, some are going to come from the air, right? But that's it. It all comes from from somewhere here on the planet. Okay. And then also, what are the environmental impacts, right? So mining can, or even oil can actually be very damaging environmentally speaking. Or is it done responsibly? I mean, that can be a factor as well. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about what's the source of it. And then you've other products, right? So let's just say like food, when we get to that part, that area of importance, right? Well, what are the growing conditions? Okay, so those are things that just, okay, how do we think about what's the source of these products that we're buying and consuming? So after the product is sourced, then what's going to happen is it's going to go to a manufacturing plant, facility, whatever you want to call it. But so you talk about the raw ore, it goes to a facility, right, where they can turn it into metal that they can use and shape into a bottle, right? And then you've got the plastic, right? So they have to, that raw material they have to do as well. And they have to turn that into plastic feedstock, right? So that they can then turn it into a lid, right? So you've got the manufacturing side, and then you've got the water, right? So, but with water, we're going to call that treatment. That's one of the things that we're going to talk about, as well as the treatment of the water. So, but again, what's the manufacturing process? What's the location or the distance from us to them, or them to us? Then also, what are the working conditions, right? What are the other materials that it takes and requires to actually make these products? What about the environmental impact, right? So we think about smokestacks in the distance, right? Is there air pollution? Is there water pollution? Is there earth pollution? What about other ingredients? What about a community impact? That's one of the things that I already talked about just a little bit when we were talking about DuPont. DuPont, knowingly, for what I found out is basically 50 years, they knowingly poisoned the community, the water for where the community lived that worked, where their workers lived. I couldn't spit that out. Okay, anyway, so that's like, okay, well, those aspects might really, really be important. So manufacturing, what are all those impacts when it comes to manufacturing? Okay, so then the next one, right, is packaging, because it's not like this is just going to come to me like this, right? They're going to have to put it into a package. Typically, they're going to have to put it into plastic, and then maybe this was put into a small cardboard box, and then it was put into a bigger cardboard box, and maybe a big plastic box, and then into a shipping container or something like that. In order for it to get to me, what are all the stages of packaging that it takes? And then you have to break down all those packagings. I don't even know if packaging is a word, but you know what I mean. Anyway, you have to really take those into consideration because there's an impact on all of those things. We want to look at packaging as well. Then from there, we go to the distribution channel, right? So let's just say this was manufactured in China. The odds are high that it was. So what they had to do is they had to put it on a truck, and then they put it on another truck and another truck, and then on most likely on a boat, and then it shipped across the ocean and put on another truck and a truck and a truck and a truck, and then finally it's able to get to me, right? So what's the distribution channel, right? So again, what's the location? What's the distance? How many miles is that, right? What's the environmental impact on all of that exhaust from all of those different distribution channels, trucks and boats and stuff like that? How much of that is actually going into there? So each product we have actually has a carbon footprint. And that's what we want to start to look at because that's the only way we can start to be responsible for these types of things. That's really my point. Okay? All right, so then you've got use. Okay, that's the next one. So right now, this product is in use, and anything that's in your possession is in the use part of the life cycle, so the product life cycle. So the question really is, or the questions are, how much do we use of it? How often do we use it? What's the impact of using that on our health, on our environmental health, and our environmental impact, our economic impact, right? Those are all those different things that we want to take into consideration, or at least we want to address so we can see the reality of the situation, okay? So just as an example, so like use, right? So I'm drinking the water, I'm using the bottle, and eventually the next and last part of the cycle is disposal. So I'm going to dispose of it. And there's a limited number of ways that we're going to be able to dispose of products. So let's just say that the first one is recycling. Okay, so what that's going to do is that's going to take it back through the entire product life cycle. So the metal will most likely be able to be recycled. The plastic, maybe. That's one of the things that I discuss and help people to understand. Definitely the water in here, right? Because it's going to go through my body and it's going to go through the sewer system, and then and I actually follow that system, and I'll show you that. It's actually very fascinating. So, but the point is, some of these things can be recycled. Okay. So, but if it's not recycled, then what's going to happen is one of the other areas is to go through the sewer. Okay. So foods and different, water and drinks and stuff like that, those are going to go through the sewer system. So the water, that's that's where that's going to go. Then you've also got a landfill, right? That goes back into the ground. And the sewer, right? That goes into water, because that's one of those three areas where everything comes from. So remember, so just as a reminder, you got water, you've got ground, and you've got air. So in the landfill, we're putting it into the ground, but we're burying it. And for how long is it going to be there, right? What's going to happen to it throughout that process? And you think about some of the impacts of burying stuff, maybe not so much a bottle, but there are other things that we bury that we have to really be careful because of the methane that it produces, or all the different potential toxins and pollution that it creates for the environment. Okay, so then the next one is compost. So some foods and different products can be composted. So that's going to go back into the ground as well. And I mean, you could say that composting, for the most part, or maybe every part, is actually very good, because it's kind of like recycling. It goes back into the system. And then the last one is incineration, right? So burning it. So most likely that's what's going to happen to the lid, because it's not necessarily guaranteed that this is going to be recycled. Metal most likely can be recycled. The lid, not so much. Anyway, so if it gets incinerated, usually they're going to incinerate it through some process where it's going to create more power. So yeah, we may get some benefit out of it, but again, what's the pollution that it's causing by burning it and sending the carbon back in, or putting it into the air, right? So then again, so incineration is now we're putting that into the air. So remember, again, those three different areas are water, air, and ground. Okay, so that's really what we're taking into consideration when we're looking at the products that we purchase. And you can think of, it doesn't matter what product it is. It's toilet paper, it's a cell phone, it's a computer, it's clothing, whatever it is. Every single thing that we buy and consume follows that same cycle. So what I'm calling the product life cycle. But the bottom line, where we want to get to, and what I'm encouraging you and everybody out there to really to ask ourselves is this: the bottom line, did this or these products, did they get to me responsibly? And what's the impact on the three aspects of health, right? So again, human health, inside and outside of our bodies, environmental health, and economic health. What are the impacts on all of those when we are buying and consuming products? That is the whole point, okay?